Well, I think we'll officially get started here. Welcome to Common Grounds. And I'm not sure anybody up here needs introducing except for the woman 3 seats down, who's a friend of all of us, friend of ours. Started out as a friend of Sarah's. This is Diane, who joined us on our walk today.
She's a friend of Carol's.
Friend of Carol's. Oh, I didn't know that.
First and then
Sarah first and then Carol.
She's well vetted.
All right, that is a pretty good vetting committee. So thank you for coming, and there are a couple of other St. Michael's people who participated in this walk who aren't able to be here now. John and Julie Graham are in Florida, and my wife Kay also joined us, and she is in Florida visiting her father. So that constitutes the St. Michael's group. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Via Francigena walk that we did. So this is about a 1,000-year-old pilgrimage that goes from Canterbury, England to Rome. And so it goes through France and a little bit of Switzerland and then Italy. And the name Via Francigena refers to the fact that a big chunk of it is through France. So this is literally the path or the road from France. This is a photo of the largest our group was, which was 16. So it consisted of our guide, an Australian woman, 60-year-old super athlete, Caroline. You may hear us refer to Caroline. Our guide, Caroline, for a brief part, her daughter was an assistant to her. 2 Canadians who knew Caroline. And then everybody else in the group has a connection to Father John Hagen, a former rector here. So there was the St. Michael's contingent, and a couple from Texas, from a former parish of John's in Michigan, and a woman from Florida from a former parish of John's in West Virginia. So some of the group just went from Lucca to Siena, and that was about an 8-day path, 82 miles. And, oh no, I need someone to go up there and point where Lucca is.
How tall do you think I am?
Oh, that's true, that's true. Well, all right, you see Rome, and Lucca is 82 miles, you know, northwest of that. So Julie and Deb Hagen actually went for that week. That's okay, David. The largest part of the group, including all the St. Michael's people here, went from Lucca to Rome, which was a month, 262 miles. And by the way, all these miles are just miles along the path. You could probably increase that by 15 or 20% because occasionally we had to walk to get to our lodging. And quite often we would explore the towns we were in the late afternoon and evening. And there were free days about every 7 or 8 days, and we typically explored those too. So you can basically add at least 15–20% to these routes. And then there were some brave souls who went all the way from Switzerland to Rome. And just along the path, that's 711 miles, and that was 2 months. And who started out going for the 2-month journey? Well, it was John Graham. His son Jeff joined them briefly, and John Hagen, and Caroline and her daughter, so our guide and her daughter. Jeffrey Graham was only scheduled to do that a week, so he left after about 7 days. And unfortunately, John Hagen also left at that point. He was fit and muscular, but as you know, he has some underlying health issues, so he lasted a week on the trail. And Caroline's daughter was injured on the trail at about that time. So quiet John Graham found himself with 3 weeks to go with just him and our guide Caroline. And towards the end, they both admired each other greatly, became great friends, but I think he was glad to see everybody in Lucca. There were some awkward breakfasts and lunches and dinners. Here's just a quick picture, and I'll turn it over in a moment. I believe that's Carol Nichols walking next to our leader, Caroline. And that's the view we often had of Caroline. She was in great shape, and she hung back to talk to us, but that was just her kindness I think we held her back. Okay, I think we're going to let Diane talk a little bit about her lodgings.
All right. So thank you for all allowing me to be here. I was like the token Catholic in the group. The portion of the trip that all of us did was from Lucca to Rome, and that was 24 days. And in those 24 days, we actually stayed at 21 different lodgings. We had a couple of rest periods, so we were staying in a place, for 2 nights. But it was incredible, the diversity of places that we stayed. This route is very definitely off the beaten path. So you're not, there's not Motel 6 everywhere, and we were a rather large group to be walking together, and so to try to find a place where we could all stay was challenging sometimes, and sometimes we had to split up. So here, actually, I don't even know where you are, Carol. I don't know which. Ah, okay.
Where she is in the picture.
Oh, she's there. Yeah, she's there. Yeah. So we did stay in some hotels, some of which were gorgeous, and some of which were along the lines of Motel 6, because that's what we could get. We also stayed in something that would be called an agriturismo, which in Italy refers to basically a farm that is set up for a guest house, which was absolutely wonderful. We had a fabulous meal one night where everything was, including the wine, was produced there. So that was wonderful. We also stayed in a number of B&Bs or guest houses that may or may not have provided breakfast or a meal. And actually, bear with me as I set down my coffee and make sure I'm not missing anything. My actual favorite of the places that we stayed was we stayed in a number of convents and monasteries, some of which were set up as hotels or guest houses. And they were the care and welcome that we received from the religious who operated those places were just outstanding in my point of view. All but one of the places that we stayed had private baths, so it's not like we were really roughing it that much. Some of the accommodations were pretty darn basic. I mean, you felt like you were staying in a convent cell.
Because we were.
Because we were. Every place had hot water, but one where they hadn't turned it on quite yet. Mostly, now we were doing this walk in October, and during a good part of the walk, we had kind of a cold snap. It was unusually cold for Italy that time of year, and many of the places that we stayed did not have the heat on. So when we got to some place that had heat or had the heated towel rack that actually worked, that was really exciting because most of us were doing laundry every night, and so the heated towel racks were a great way to dry your socks. And I guess the other thing that I'll say is just of the places that we stayed, I was surprised at the number that had pools. There were actually a number of places where there were pools, and Larry Nichols was particularly intrepid at taking advantage of every pool that was there, no matter how cold and how unheated the pool was.
You said this was the coldest water you've been in?
It was chilly.
Oh, and there we go. There's one of the pools.
And this is the hotel outside in San Gimignano.
Yeah, which was, the hotel outside of San Gimignano was, it was wonderful because it was located right on the square. So sometimes we were staying in areas that were kind of out in the country, but this was right in the midst. And actually, if I had been more organized, I would have gotten Joe video that I took of our the hotel where we stayed in Siena, or the guest house where we stayed in Siena, which had a wonderful view of the cathedral, and I have a recording of the bells ringing, which happens a lot in Italy. You hear those bells right through the night sometimes.
Oh. The food was amazing, and we were so hungry. That's really probably the key to delicious food, is being really hungry. So this is one morning we prepared our own breakfast. This was at one of the convent/guest houses, and that was really special, but unusual, because most of the time breakfast was included, and it was either a simple kind of pastry, coffee. Could we talk about the coffee? Oh, it was wonderful. And we got a little bit good at knowing what to order. You know, there was a certain way that you could get coffee with milk extra hot, and you know, all these wonderful things. And Larry did have coffee one afternoon with grappa in it, which was special.
It was morning.
So, breakfast, this is a coffee stop. This is actually where Larry did have the grappa. It was Cafe San Lorenzo, so he felt especially, you know, inspired. But we would walk for maybe, you know, we'd walk for a couple of hours, we'd stop and have a coffee. We'd walk for a couple of hours. Here we are at lunch. This was Bon Convento. In a little courtyard, and Carolyn had packed sandwiches that day. And here we are. One night we had pizza. Well, a number of nights we had pizza. Very thin crust. If you want to have Italian pizza, go for the very thin crust and not too many toppings. I think we tend to overdo it, but yummy. So we had extra, and John Graham carried it on his back so that we could have it with our lunch. And there's Carolyn on the other side, and she would carry our lunches generally. She was definitely the strongest of our group. And she carried...
Those are 5 or 6
yeah, bread, she would carry bread, she carried salami, she carried cheese, she carried balsamic vinegar and olive oil. She carried everything, but no, we all carried our own water. Water is heavy. But here we are having a picnic. Most days were picnics out in the middle of in the countryside. We're sitting underneath olive trees, and we're looking over Lake Bolzano. And she had this red and white check tablecloth that she just whipped out and created the most amazing salad lunches. And then, and here's our friend John Graham resting. We would usually arrive, we'd usually arrive later in the afternoon, and dinner is not until 7:30, and we were hungry. So our routine was we'd wash our clothes, do laundry, take a shower, take a rest, and as we got stronger towards the end of our trip, we would gather for a Aperol Spritz, which is what this is, with a handsome profile in the background. And this is a picture of us at a table, and we, you know, having breakfast, lunch, and dinner with the same people for 24 days could become a challenge, but we really had a great time. And I think part of that key is that we were all tired every night. there was no pressure for, you know, great conversation. It just happened. We shared lots of stories about our lives and memories. And here's a beautiful pasta course. So we're really hungry. We sit down. They serve us antipasta, which is the cheese, the salami, the whatever. So we all eat it, you know, with great gusto. Then comes the pasta, which we eat also with great gusto. Then, sometimes, then would come another course, which we would be totally intimidated by and sorry that we had eaten so much antipasta. So we learned to kind of pace ourselves, have a little bit of the antipasta, enjoy the pasta, and see what happens next. Carolyn also got very good at explaining to our hosts and hostesses that we didn't really need more than antipasta or salad and pasta, or pasta or a main course. We didn't need it all. We did kind of like the desserts, which were quite wonderful. And because it was fall, and the specialty in the fall is chingali ragu, which is wild boar ragu. And we ended up having it 9 times, and we were not complaining, because each place would say, oh, we've prepared for you the local regional specialty. You know, we only walked like 12, 20 miles a day. So like the regional specialties was the same as last night. But that's okay. It was delicious. It was so good that we all kind of miss it now, don't we?
Larry found boar in Toledo.
Yeah, Larry found wild boar sausage at Kroger.
He's hooked. He's hooked.
Really hard sausage, you know, the like hard salami kind of sausage. But it was yummy. And that's the end of the food.
We, as we were on the trail path, would follow such a sign as you're looking at now, or a red and white marking on a tree, or a written out word, Via Francigena. And I decided, though I'm going to say a few words after the following, the best way to give you an idea of what this experience was like for us was to watch this.
Oh, excuse me.
It's only about 25 seconds or so. That was day 10, on which we walked from Siena to Monterione d'Arabia, I don't speak Italian, and my notes from my journal here say about 22 kilometers, only 13.6 miles. Walking for so long in such incredibly beautiful terrain, it's like a dream. Siena was visible for hours today, so too a ridiculous former tower for freeze-dried tomatoes. The last few hours, vast rolling hills, brown dirt, would walk up a slope on the dirt road, and there was more expanse. Reached the small town, no retail that we could find, about 4 p.m. Laundry, shower, she napped. I sent friends photographs. Sunset about 6:30, smack out our hotel room window, which overlooks an expansive vineyard, through which we walked to arrive here. 1944, Allied bombs tried to take out a bridge in this town, missed the bridge but trashed much of the village, and doubtless human life, unimaginable. I referenced the dreamlike state that walking so long induces. Left, right. Somehow, it's both exhausting and relaxing at the same time. Now another 7:30 dinner. I'm ready for the pasta. The trails, the path was varied. Sometimes it was a dirt path like you see at left. At right, you see Carol crossing a river holding on, I won't say for dear life, but it was somewhat treacherous. And there's There's Debbie and Sarah at the left with, help me guys, was that Radocofani in the distance, I believe. Towards the end of the trip, we found ourselves walking through a gorge as well, which was just uncanny and exquisite. There's a certain Joe Hardinger resting at left, and a certain Carol Nichols that I captured underneath a wonderful archway with the experience of the hills in the background. And another, just to give you the sense of the expanse, but also, I have to tell you point blank, I ain't no groupie. And so I was fearful of walking with 16 people for 22 days. It just gave me claustrophobic conniptions. But it wasn't that way. Even somebody you're madly in love with, you could walk ahead or behind and just be by yourself and think. The program for today, announcing this common ground set, would each tell a little bit about what the experience meant for us. It was spiritual, it was solitary, it was exhausting and rewarding. A lot of chance to think. John Graham had the remarkable phrase constantly, it's your own Camino, meaning nobody was intent on having the same kind of experience. You're doing what you want to do. Nobody's first, nobody's last. And it was quite, therefore, unique that way. There's a Roman road, yes, Roman road that we walked on for a while. We had very little rain. I think 3 days we had to put on our raincoats or ponchos. The, what's the name of the committee? Help me. Stewardship Committee letter that we all got, written by one Joe Hardinger, referenced a man who just offered snacks and coffee along the trail. This is that man. I thought I would share with you all that meaningful letter that came to us. A wild horse pranced around a road we were on at one point, some of us saw. Joe and I loved what we call the men's clubs. Gathering of men. They loved car honking horns or people disputing about finding parking spots. And so I started taking photographs of these guys religiously.
We encountered them often in the morning, but I suspect these guys might have been out there most of the day, keeping an eye on things. And yeah, there'd be a parking dispute or whatnot, and they would get involved. They'd be, you know, half a town away, but they'd be yelling at everybody. I was a little worried for Larry taking these photos. I thought he was gonna get caught, but.
Here's two more of the men's club meetings around Italy.
He's starting one in Toledo if you want to sign up.
And then Carol Nichols got so excited with the trip that I took this photograph of her working on the grapes.
That might be me. So I won't take long here, just a couple of slides of a few special towns. So when I look back on this, you know, Rome is in a different category, and Diane's going to talk about that in a moment. But I think what I'm most going to remember are the medieval towns we stayed in up to Rome. So this is a view of San Gimignano with 7 towers still standing. I think at one point there were over a dozen. This is Radicofana, and as Larry mentioned, yeah, we saw this 2 days walking towards it, and I think 2 or 3 days walking away from it. It's on a hill, and then there's a plateau, and then there's the town, and then there's the tower. So it was like the Eye of Sauron, if you're a Lord of the Rings person. We could not escape this. I like this because it reminded me of an Escher print. This is Viterbo.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I believe these two are both Siena. Very hilly, narrow streets, and outside of the convent we stayed, there was a restaurant with tables all arranged. I don't know, was anybody brave enough to try it one night on our day off? I don't know if anybody tried that restaurant. Here we are, this is the photo from the beginning, in Siena. That's the largest the group was, so Julie Graham is still in there. And that's the main plaza in Siena.
Did anybody
anybody climb the tower?
Not in Siena.
Not in Siena.
Okay.
Larry probably has the medal for most towers climbed. But a lot of us took advantage of that, yeah.
So I just have to make a couple of comments about the walking. I also had a journal, and what I felt fully prepared for the walking part. I was not prepared for the up and down. And I use a Fitbit, and so my record, which gives me data for each day on the number of floors, so that's recording the up, I'm thinking, not the down. The record that I had, I think, was 210 floors. Okay. So walked over 17 miles that day and 210 floors. In my journal, I do have a day where I say it was an easy day of walking. I think it was only a little over 10 miles and 82 floors. That was an easy day. So I'm just saying. The other thing I will mention is some of this got pretty darn preoccupied with getting stamps. So when you do a pilgrimage walk like this, you get a passport, and there are places for you to get a stamp along the way. And that proves that you've walked the entire distance, or sufficient distance to, at the end, you go to the Vatican and you get a testimonium that is your certificate saying that you have completed the pilgrimage. So this is the testimonium that you get when you go to the sacristy at St. Peter's Basilica. So, as I said, some people got a little preoccupied with getting great stamps, and if we weren't in church, I might have a name for what we were. But so Rome was pretty darn exciting. My focus at that point was the Vatican. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Vatican. Oh, so this is so when we arrived. This is the square in front of St. Peter's Basilica, and this is the picture that we took of when we all arrived in Rome on that 24th day. And I will just point out, I don't think anybody has really explained. So you can see John Graham there in the front wearing this shirt. Now remember, John walked from the Swiss border, and he wore that shirt every single day that he walked. Now, he did assure us that he washed it out every night, as far as we know. But you can see that he is wearing that shirt. He did bring it back with him. He did not wear it ever, ever, ever again. And my understanding is that there are some clothes that he brought with him that he walked with that did not make the return trip. But so here's the Vatican. Some of us did a tour of the Vatican Museum and St. Peter's Basilica, which I found to be really worthwhile. Because the guide, as we were going through the Vatican Museum, basically was hitting the highlights. I mean, it wound up being about a 4-hour tour, and she was just like blowing past stuff that us folks here in Toledo would have been saying, golly, but it was like, nope, that was not on the tour, that was not the highlight, we didn't have time to look at all of that stuff. So it was really worthwhile to have her usher us through. You could easily spend weeks at the Vatican. Something that almost all of us in the group did, thanks to John Hagan, was we had gotten tickets for Scavi. Scavi is a tour that goes underneath St. Peter's Basilica, actually 2 levels below St. Peter's. That the tour starts out, it's an archaeological dig of a pagan cemetery that then takes you into the area that is actually the area where St. Peter's remains are, his tomb. It was fascinating and incredibly moving from my point of view.
And we couldn't take photos. This is the best we can do. This is the...
Yeah, you're not allowed to take photos in there, and the groups are strictly limited, which is why the tickets are kind of hard to get. We had booked them months and months and months ahead of time in order to get there.
That's the Swiss Guard putting us through the ringer, making sure we're able to get back there.
Yeah. Also, in St. Peter's Basilica, you know, again, an absolutely incredible space, and so we were able to spend time in there. Sarah and I were able to attend Mass there, which was very meaningful for me. I will just tell you that they do Mass there daily, not at the main altar, of course. It's only celebrated in Italian and Latin. However, the sermon or the homily, they did actually do in English. I mean, it was in Italian, and then they did, I don't know if it was do you know if it was a summary? Do you remember? But they repeated it in English, which was very nice. And then Sarah and I were able to attend the papal audience, which, if the Pope is in town, he does every Wednesday. I will just let you know the tickets for that are free. So if you're ever in Rome and on a Wednesday and you want to go to that, and actually we didn't even get tickets. We lined up starting at 7:20. We made it there. And there were people lined up for forever, including, there are a lot of bridal couples that are there in their wedding dresses and their wedding finery. They get to be in the very front row. And after the papal audience, the Pope does greet them. That was pretty cool to see them. There were a lot of youth groups there who were singing and chanting, and when the Pope actually came out, it was kind of like a rock star showed up. Everybody went nuts, and when he was doing his walkabout at the end of the papal audience, even the nuns were like standing on chairs trying to get a better look at him. So, so that's the Vatican. And
so just briefly, there's also ancient Rome. So some of us toured the Colosseum and the Roman Forum and the Pantheon, and what can you say about it? It was wonderful. And now we're going to turn it over to Sarah.
Well, as Diane alluded to, everywhere you turn, everywhere, and you know this from your own travels, that art and architecture and history and archaeology is just everywhere. And we were especially lucky, as you may note, to have some very good advice about what to see and where. So I emailed Larry earlier in the summer saying, are you available? You can say, no, I just retired, or you can say maybe, or you can say sure, and he immediately said sure. So I asked him to sort of give me notes and pointers, and certainly in Lucca, I don't have a picture from Lucca, he gave me some pointers, and Siena, and in Rome, and I'm going to show you just a few pictures of fantastic experiences. So we heard about St. John the Baptist this morning. Here's St. John the Baptist. I would never have known. I mean, I would have seen him and recognized him. You know, you know who this is. But on the right is Donatello, John the Baptist, in the chapel to John the Baptist in the Duomo in Siena. And I had an injury that day, and so I actually took a bus to Siena. And the next morning, Larry came to me and says, I think you could do this. And I was like, what? Okay. Because I thought, rest day, I better stay off that knee. And he said, take a taxi, go to the Duomo, and here's what you got to see. So, and on the left is something out of a fabulous work of art called the Maestà by Duccio. And it's in an adjoining building of the museum of the works from the cathedral that have been secured inside this museum. So this is from an altarpiece by Duccio, whom Larry told me is the bridge, a turning point between medieval art and the Renaissance. So here I saw John the Baptist, I focused in on him. At the center of this is Christ or Mary? Anyway, I'm talking about art, not Larry. So anyway, because I was pointed to things that I could see, I saw them and was just extremely grateful for that. And then this absolutely fabulous experience. Larry was giving us notes about, he would come over with a little slip of paper, you know. And it's like, if you can. So I took a little adventure. This is Caravaggio. It's on the wall, so you'll never ever see it any other place. It's in a little chapel, or not, it's a big chapel because it's a big piece of art. There's art on 3 walls. It's a chapel to St. Matthew in the church San Luigi de Francesi, the Church of the French, St. Louis of the French in Rome. And I was headed on a little shopping expedition, took a taxi and think, how am I ever going to find my way out of here? But the shopkeeper told me that this church was nearby and the Caravaggio. So this is St. Matthew and the angel. And I am just, and there were 2 others that I loved, but this one was straight ahead. And here's St. Matthew. And if you can see, this angel, this young angel, is like bending down. He's dictating the gospel. And he's got his fingers out. He's going, look, you're first, second, third. This is what you write down. And Matthew is like, what? And you can't see it, but his knee is on a stool that's about to fall off the ledge. So he's like, you know, whoa, it's happening. You know, it's an incredibly moving piece of art that many of us saw because Larry Nichols said, hey, you might want to do this. And of course, you can walk anywhere you want to in Rome. But I could get lost anywhere around the corner in these places. So I was so grateful I got there and got to see and experience this. And Larry is organizing a Caravaggio show coming up.
Toledo Museum of Art's January 2024.
So there you go.
Thank you, Sarah.
And Larry Nichols was not just the art historian on our tour. He played many wonderful roles, including, what did you call him? The camp counselor. He was a cheerleader for all of us and a wonderful, wonderful support. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So this is back in the Vatican museums. This is Raphael's The School of Athens, which is a fabulous, huge painting high on this wall. And he's depicted lots of people, contemporaries or Italians, in this depiction of history and all the great minds of history. But what I loved was that in the foreground, and you can do the close-up of that, is his depiction of Michelangelo. And I'm not sure who he's supposed to be in history, but you know, this competition between Raphael and Michelangelo as to who was the most important. So I love that our tour guide, you know, helped us see just a bit, but a lot of what was there. And I think that's it. That's my a bit about art.
So John Graham had the longest and most treacherous and perhaps the most rewarding part, so we thought we'd have some final thoughts from him that he was kind enough to write down. The simplest things are the best things in life. It's better to have a single functional article of clothing than a closet full of fashion, especially when you have to carry all your clothes each day. It takes a light pack to walk the long pilgrimage, and as Diane mentioned, it is possible to do a load of laundry every day in a bathroom sink with a ketchup-sized packet of shampoo. I love this. Slowing down enhances our appreciation and gratitude for the people that make the world go round. The housekeeper, the chef, the lady behind the pharmacy counter, the stranger that gives us directions to get back to the trail, the fellow pilgrim that gives a bandage or some advice on blisters, the cafe that lets us use its bathroom. We had thousands of interactions with kind people that made the pilgrimage possible, and we'll never see them again. They were just doing what they do each day. Good health is a great gift, and nuns are happy people. We should say, so John walked 2.5 times farther than we did. And you know, in the group we had our fair share of minor complaints. We didn't take him to our guide, but we'd say, well, we were supposed to be there at 2 and it's 4. You know, this was a lot uphill today, or I didn't like my room last night. Dozens of times we'd be complaining to each other. John could easily have interjected there and said, well, this is nothing, you should have seen it in the Alps, or you should have seen, but he never did that. Gracious all the time. And so here are your St. Michael's friends, thanking you for coming. I think we've run past, but we're happy to stay and answer questions if you would like to stay.
Any questions? But take off if you need to.
Definitely. Yes?
Henry?
I just have one. Who arranged for your accommodations, your dinners, and things like that?
That would be Caroline, our Australian fearless leader. I should have just done this a little smarter.
Beforehand or on the trip?
Yeah.
She did it beforehand, but she was thrown a couple of curveballs. You know, because of COVID, some things were closed, so we'd see her in the morning arranging things frantically. So that's Caroline on the right with the backpack. I don't want to answer all these. Sorry, guys.
Anybody questions? I mean, feel free to leave because we're kind of past our
And
time.
if John is planning another tour in the
He
future?
is. Yeah, he's organizing a part of the Camino de Santiago. John Hagen is in next October in Portugal,
Okay,
from Porto to Santiago Camino.
yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What time of day did you start? What was your wake-up call?
What's the question?
What time of day did we start?
8:30 in the morning we got going generally, and finished anywhere from 2 to 5:30. And I think all of us felt we could do a long day. The concern was, could you do it 22 days?
And at the end of the day, you went up.
That was the amazing thing. We all had our up moments, and we also had our down moments. Carol and I, one night at 2 a.m., and we were saying, I don't know if I can finish this. And by 8:30, we started walking, and just did it. It was life-changing.
Thank you.
Thank you.